And you help people to understand how to do that through both Pantera and Gemstone, correct?
Correct, yeah. And the other thing,
do you have any examples of people who have done these things and been successful in removing themselves from the system?
Well, the last time I filed a tax return was 1988. I have corresponded with the IRS many ways and many times through the last, 28, 29 years. The Pantera Society is structured and defined as an ecclesiastical body, which people would say, well, that sounds like a religion. And it's not. You have to go back to the roots of words. Ecclesiastical comes from the Greek ecclesia, which simply means the body of the congregation. We are living bodies. We can come together with a group of people and we create a congregation of multiple bodies as an ecclesia. The entire world system is based, like I said before, on religion. Okay? The United States is actually a religious body. Every city is a religious body. It's all based on ecclesiastical law. And so we are just reproducing it. And so as a private society with an ecclesiastical structure that they cannot refute, because that's what the system is. We just know how to claim it and perfect it. So we've created a court. It's an ecclesiastical court which jurisdictionally is superior to every court in this country. Okay? And they know it. So our court is a court of record. We hold the records of everything we do. We've recorded it, we've archived it, and we notice. We've noticed, we have a website, panterapca.org. It has all of the public notices that we've sent. We've sent it to the Holy See, to the Vatican, the Lord Mayor of City of London, to the President, to the Ban Ki-moon at the UN. We gave them notice 4 years ago. This is who we are. If you have any basis in law to refute, reject, or deny this fact, you have a time to properly do so. They never have. Therefore, when I communicate to the IRS, to courts, I tell them that I'm the Chief Justice of the Court of the Ecclesia of the Pantera de Oro Private Society. And do you know what? When they write back, they write exactly how I tell them to do so. Okay? I tell them that I'm not in the zip code system because that's the corporate system that is part of the binding contract that puts us in that system. And I've got IRS, a state court, federal court, many entities in their system that have acknowledged by writing to me as exactly what I say I am. And so we also, we have two premium courses that we teach people. One is a status correction. The other is how to create your own society and reproduce what I've described Pantera is. My goal when I set out to do this was to create a replicatable model that is infinitely replicatable. And so we teach people how to create their own structure, their own society, and it is fully protected by all the way the system is set up. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I haven't filed a tax return in 27 years. In fact, in recent times, the IRS came knocking on my door for something that went back on I don't need to go into the detail, but a mechanism in which they created a tax liability on my franchise. And I didn't know it was there for a while. I then became aware of it. I did certain paperwork that I sent to the IRS in Puerto Rico, which is actually the home of the IRS. And then another IRS officer decided to try to remonetize the franchise. And so he came and he made an offer, because everything in the system is based on commercial offer and commercial acceptance. This is how they bind you to their bills and their system. I know how to deal with that. And so I reversed it. I actually appointed him as trustee of my master trust, and I expressed an individual trust for my IRS account. And I appointed him as a trustee. And even in a meeting that I went to with him in July, I convened our court as a court of evidentiary record, and we recorded it, and we took all the steps that I needed to do, and I appointed him as trustee. And during that conversation, he said to me, or he was recording it for his own record, he said something about the taxpayer, and I said, well, there's no taxpayer here. And then I corrected myself. I said, well, actually, there is a taxpayer. You, officer so-and-so, are the taxpayer, because you are the trustee and you hold the liability. And that was in July, and later in the year, I provided him the means to clear or to extinguish, to settle and close that liability, and he didn't perform on that. So I wrote to Treasury Criminal Investigation, and I said, hey, he's the trustee and he's not settling this account. And so they called me up and asked me to come visit them, which I did about a month ago. And so I've turned it around to make him my trustee. He holds the liability. The exact same thing applies to a court officer, a public officer, you name it. Because everything that they're creating in terms of paper, traffic ticket, court case, IRS bill, you name it, is simply another event of monetizing the bankrupt franchise and creating more debt paper to circulate as currency. So the real key here is we're at a tipping point. We have the ability to be true absolute anarchists, where we remove the overlay of this presumption of consent, this bonded surety relationship to this entire global monetized debt system, and to actually become a true man or woman standing with full capacity. And that full capacity gives us the ability to do what I've just described, direct the trustees. You take care of it, it's your liability. And so there's many things I've done over the last 25 years, but it took me 23 years to perfect my understanding of what was the estate, how did trust law come into play, how does equity come into play, how does martial law come into play, how is the emergency banking rules coming into play, all of that. And now we've got it structured and perfected, and we now can become not only the director of all of it, but we can ultimately become the bank, because we no longer need to go to them to bind ourselves into their religious, quasi-religious, ecclesiastical construct and basically bind ourselves from cradle to grave to be the surety. That's the last thing we want to do. Like you said, do you want the liabilities or do you want the equity? You want the equity. In our status correction, we claim and perfect the holding of the equity. And that's what we all want. And one of us can do it, 1,000 of us can do it, millions of us can do it. Once more and more of us do it, then we have more capacity to start actually removing the overlay that we're all burdened under, whether we're an expat or living in California.